Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new chapter of Old Man Brad. Whether you are new to the show or returning for another chapter, thank you so much for giving me a listen. And if you love the show, drop me a review over in your favorite podcast app, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/oldmanbrad. This chapter, I have another new horror film, a horror comedy called Bloody Axe Wound, from the director of Uncle Peckerhead, Matthew John Lawrence. I also have an interview with Matthew, so I'm really excited for you to hear that. Before I dive into the film, I just want to say, if you're in the Cincinnati area, come out to Frightful Fridays on the third Friday of the month. We just had our December screening of Don't Open Till Christmas. January, on January 17th, we're still locking down what film, but come out to the Esquire Theater. I'm so thankful to be partnered with the Esquire to bring a horror screening, but come out January 17th, 10 p.m. Let's watch a movie together. All right, let's move into Bloody Axe Wound.
Please.
You wanted to see me?
I don't want to see that wolf in any more films. Got it?
Got it.
In my town of Clover Falls, real-life massacres have been put on tape and packaged for decades. While some dads fix toilets, my dad terminates teens.
Series needs new legs. We're barely staying afloat month to month.
Why not me?
Because you're a girl.
What?
Sorry, woman. Ma, I mean no disrespect, but she's got to hear this.
The daughter of a prolific ex-serial killer attempts to follow in her father's footsteps, but he doubts she has what it takes to live up to his reputation. This is written and directed by Matthew John Lawrence. It stars Sari Aramburu, Molly Brown, Eddie Levi, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Billy Burke, Sage Spielman, and many others. This comes out December 27th. Before we move into the interview with Matthew, I just want to say, watch for this movie. Go seek this movie out. It is a blast. If you have seen Uncle Peckerhead and you enjoyed Uncle Peckerhead, you enjoyed the horror comedy mix with some good practical work, some good gore, this will hit that same spot. Absolutely fun film. I'll dig into a little bit more after my interview, but I had so much fun with Bloody Axe Wound, and honestly, I can't wait to watch it again. Let's move into my chat with Matthew John Lawrence. My guest today has worked on multiple projects, including his last film, Uncle Peckerhead, which was one of my favorite movies of 2020. His new film, Bloody Axe Wound, comes out December 27th. I want to welcome in Matthew John Lawrence. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Brad.
How did you come up with this idea for Bloody Axe Wound, this coming of age slasher?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted to do. I also have to. You have to excuse me. I'm going through puberty right now. I'm just getting over a cold, so the voice is cracking. So when I get excitable, the voice is going to crack. Anyway, Bloody Axe Wound. It's a script that I'd been working on since, like, a version of it since like 2015, 2016. And basically, since I write alone, I was kind of having that internal writer's room where you're like just pitching yourself ideas. Like, does this stick? Does this stick? And the one thing that really like stuck for me was the idea of taking a killer from a slasher movie and having them transform or transition over the course of the movie into a final girl. So I started with that, and then just like, over the course of years, I just started to kind of, it at first started like an office play, like a workplace comedy. But then what I really liked from that is the dad worked at that office. And then I just started to kind of pull back, the stuff that kind of felt cabin in the woodsy. And I made it more of kind of a coming of age story, a lot more family drama in there. And I've always wanted to do a slasher movie set at a high school. So it was just kind of also a lot of the other stuff was just kind of the kitchen sinkedness of it, of just like, how about we do this? How about we do this? And kind of seeing what sticks.
And as you were coming up with these ideas, started from office, move into school, and it's this mix. There's a lot of references to mini slashers we've seen, 80s, 90s, and all that. Were you just making a list of like, oh, we could throw this and this and this in, kind of little winks?
Yeah, I mean, the one of the things I wanted to do was obviously to build a world, but then to have all these Easter eggs. Because I was a child of the '80s and the '90s. The video store was my kind of church, my home. The Friday the 13th movies, specifically were really just kind of like I had my collection. I had a row of from 1 through at the time 8, and I just like I there were just some of those sequences, whether it be Violet dancing in her room, stuff like that, just kind of were so ingrained in my head, and I wanted to kind of one, pay an homage to it, but also just like have fun. And like this movie is for horror fans, so I wanted to kind of like I wanted it to be a very communal, like people just celebrating all these not like the biggest moments from your favorite horror movies or your favorite horror franchises, but just some of the scenes that are so like just stick with me. Like everybody sees on like the montage of the greatest horror moments, right? Like Leatherface chasing Sally down the road, but there are just so many other really kind of just batshit crazy, insane, fun, audience like loving moments that I wanted to kind of try and do a little, like you said, a wink throughout the film.
Did you find any challenges in that of like, I don't want to go too far to where this seems like a cheesy movie over what I kind of want to do, a good mix?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like you don't want it to feel like it's scary movie, even though I love, the first couple scary movies, but you don't want it to feel like that. And you also don't want it to feel like you're just doing a carbon copy of it. You want it, and that is the tough thing. There were like dozens of ideas throughout, like while I was just gestating this, that I was like, should I do that? And if it didn't feel organic to the story we were creating, if I didn't feel like I could do a little a spin on it and not just have it feel like a carbon copy or just literally recreating that scene from that installment or that moment in the movie, we got rid of it. So it is a delicate balance, because you want this to feel like a movie, like its own movie, but like part of our intent was for it to be kind of a celebration and kind of like taking on, because like the whole, like one of the ideas is just kind of like updating kind of the slasher, like she wanted to kind of be like a new age slasher, so you want to kind of have it feel unique and different, but yeah, it's a delicate balance. And I mean, I'm sure I'll hear from people on Letterboxd and YouTube soon enough to know if we succeeded.
I did want to talk Eddie Levy's character. I mean, he is the cliched background character. How did you come up with this? Did he improv any of some of that stuff? Like, hey, I want you to be similar to this, but not quite.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie is an absolute juggernaut talent. And I think it wasn't so much that he improvised a ton, but he really breathed. He put so much life into that character. And I sent him a bunch of references of like either characters that he's kind of basing that character off of. But Eddie is just, you can give him like a few crumbs of like direction or like reference points, and he takes it and he goes absolutely off the charts. I mean, the shame of it is there's a couple of scenes that we ended up cutting with him in it, that it's just like, it pained me because he is so absolutely, breathtakingly funny. But yeah, I mean, it was a mix of just Eddie just being like, an uber talented person, giving him the right reference points and just spinning him and having him go.
Yeah, there were a few of those scenes that just had me laughing so hard with him. It's like, this is perfection.
Dude, that warms my heart to hear. This is like really one of the first, besides, showing it to people who had worked on it. You're one of the first people I've heard, talk about the movie. So that I'm so glad that, because Eddie, he just shines, He does. So I'm so happy people are starting to kind of, it's resonating with folks.
Now let's talk about the rest of the cast. I mean, you had a good young cast. You had, what you would think is a typical final girl end up, some things kind of flip. I don't want to give anything away of the movie because people may not
Totally.
have seen it yet. But how is it working with this young cast, taking this back to high school and all that?
It sounds like such a cliche line, but believe me, I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'd tell you if there was a bad apple in the group. I mean, we had such an incredible cast, both in terms of they bonded, and there's so many videos I have on my phone that I just watch if I want to warm my heart of them just like fooling around during in between takes and just kind of they all bonded together. So Sari, who plays Abby in the movie, is like just you couldn't have asked for a better lead as far as a collaborator, and just like a beautiful soul, really cares about the work, takes it seriously, but also is like knows everybody's name on set and also can have fun on set, isn't just like this uber serious kind of keeps to themselves character, although there's nothing wrong with that. Molly Brown, who played Sam, again, like just amazing, like just and what was crazy is for a film like this where it's still like a tier zero, like low budge horror movie. We're shooting for just 18 days, so basically people show up the day before we shoot. Maybe we run a couple of the meatier scenes or the more kind of like the heavier scenes, but basically the first day on set is really when you get to know everybody, and by like the second or third day, everybody was it was a tight knit group, from Angel to Margot to Taylor, who played Billy, and even the teens that meet their demise much earlier in the movie. Everybody was so great. I mean, we got so lucky in that the cast had such an energy. It was the first time where I was working with a lot of young people, like people under 25, but I mean, insanely professional, hysterically funny. You like kill it on like the dramatic beats. So yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better cast. It was like it felt like a gift.
Did you come across any challenges as you were kind of putting this together, or kind of another question I have is like, how is this different from, say, Uncle Peckerhead? You came from, you have a horror comedy. You're looking at your filmography now, so it's
totally. I mean, it was a huge difference in that. For Peckerhead, it was micro budget, like it was very like I funded it with like some help from my wife. And we had, maybe on our biggest day, like 7, 8 people on crew, this was really different. Still, like I mentioned, a tier zero micro budget movie, or not micro budget, a low budget movie. But we had a lot more money to work with, because Shudder and RLJE were so kind enough to help get this off the ground, and we just had more more person power, both with like the Morgans producing it and just kind of like Mary Stuart Masterson having a connection to the Hudson Valley like production kind of like hub. So we had a lot more power behind it, but more money, more problems. We still only had 18 days. You're still like killing yourself over every minute because every minute counts as far as like money and time. But we just had a much bigger cast and crew as a union shoot. So that was the thing, and also just like you're reconciling a lot of things because at going to that level, I kind of gave up Final Cut. So there's just things that you kind of wanted in it that hopefully there'll be a director's cut someday, and you get to have that stuff in. But in terms of like just kind of like bringing a story like that to life. I mean, I tried getting that off the ground in 2016. We raised, a couple $100,000, but we couldn't make the movie unless we hit a certain point. So that's why I did Peckerhead, is I had to scrap that for the time being. So it was just like, it was kind of a dream come true in that like I got to kind of like, I hate to use the term level up, but you get to like level up, but it's still, it's just like the pressure is still there and even more pronounced, because you don't want to like falter or fail at that level when you kind of take those chances. But luckily, I mean, again, the cast and crew were so incredible, and it was just like it was a dream to be able to kind of to get here. It's something that I've been thinking about or wanting to do since I was like a little kid at that video store.
Well, as we kind of wrap things up, we kind of running out of time, I wanted to ask you about the music references and there are some Easter eggs to Peckerhead for anyone who has ever seen it. We'll pick them up. I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
This comes out December 27th. What is there plans for physical release after? Stuff like that, to see some of those cutting room floor scenes and such?
As far as a physical release, I would love to do it. I hope that that's in the works. I haven't heard anything yet, but I think it's just, we hope that, it finds its audience. And I think if it finds its audience, that's a no-brainer. As far as the music, music is such a part of my life. I grew up playing in bands. Before I got into film, I toured and played in bands my whole life. Jeff Riddle, who wrote all the songs for Uncle Peckerhead with his band $500, wrote 3 songs for this movie that are in the film. And Sam's band is Acid Cat, which is reference in Uncle Peckerhead. But there's a ton more stuff. There's both the fake bands of the world buildy kind of Uncle Peckerhead. I call it the Alliteration Records universe that I kind of that I created. But then there's also, both Lisa Myers, our production designer, and my wife, Wiki Mendoza, who's the associate producer, had all these contacts to labels. So whether it be Sub Pop, Flat Spot Records, Convulse Records, I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of other labels that were so kind in giving us posters and T-shirts and just supporting the movie while we were making it. That's the thing of just independent artists supporting other independent artists, even if it's a different medium. It was a really it was a real heartening experience that people lent their cred to our movie because they really liked Uncle Peckerhead and they really liked the stuff we've been doing.
Well, Matthew, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me. It was great to chat briefly.
Yeah.
I know you and I chatted a few years ago. I wish you all the best with this movie. People go see Bloody Axe Wound. It's so much fun, and check out Uncle Peckerhead too. But thank you so much.
Oh, Brad, I can't thank you enough. It's great to reunite with people that supported Uncle Peckerhead when it was a tiny, it still is a tiny movie. I'm thinking it out to be like it's Gladiator 2. It really means a lot that you took your time out to watch the movie and talk to me. I hope we can reconnect sometime down the line.
Oh, absolutely. I want to thank Matthew again for taking the time out of his day and chatting with me. It was great to connect with him again. I talked to him a few years ago about Uncle Peckerhead, but it was good to sit down and talk with him once again. Okay, so Bloody Axe Wound. This, just like the description says, you have this girl whose father is a killer. They own this video store, and it's hilarious because his killings are based on, these movies are based on. He's a mass killer. He's getting old. It's time to start hanging it up. Like when he dies, they bury him to come back. He's getting a little too old to come out, but he's not sure about her taking over. He hands the reins to someone else, and the scene with it, I'm going to keep it spoiler free, is hilarious. There's this final girl, things happen, so she decides to go back to high school. She needs to go to high school to basically stalk these kids that she needs to knock off for the story or the movie. And so funny. She starts to fall for them. They're just people too. She starts falling for the main girl. And as we're going, we're setting up different kills, different situations. There are many references to other films, Friday the 13th, other slashers, camp killers, character played by Eddie Levy. He's like his background character, and each time he comes in, he's dressed up, trying to dress for the part. He is so funny. There's one scene I can't give away because it will ruin the joke, but I legit was almost in tears laughing so hard. It was so funny, just the energy he put into the scene. How much that he just sunk himself into it. One where it's reference to a Friday the 13th that's so good, but yes, so much fun. The music in this movie is great. As Matthew said in the interview, Jeff Riddle, who did some of the songs for Uncle Peckerhead, did a few songs for this movie. Some of the other songs they had were great. They're references to Uncle Peckerhead, which if you've seen that movie, you'll pick up a few of the actors that are in it, a few smaller nods to connect to Uncle Peckerhead, like bands and other things. So it's kind of like almost in the same universe, which I loved. Overall, I couldn't recommend this movie enough. I really enjoyed my time with Bloody Axe Wound. It's funny. It's gory. The opening scene is great. The kills are great. It has a lot of heart as it goes along. It has a lot of the same comedic beats, kind of, not same comedic beats, but that same comedic timing of Uncle Peckerhead that really hooked me into that film. And this is a lot of that same. So it hit off really good. But yeah, I recommend Bloody Axe Wound. Go find it. Go see it. It is definitely worth it. I'm glad that I saw this. It might end up on that end of year list that is coming very soon. Well, there you go. There are my quick thoughts on Bloody Axe Wound. Go watch it. And as I'm heading out, I'm just going to tell you to go watch Uncle Peckerhead as well, because it is just as much fun as this movie. It was one of my favorite films that came out in 2020. It just hit the right spot when it landed. A good mix of comedy and horror, of this roadie for this small band that after midnight he turns into a flesh-eating demon, and it's hilarious. Uncle Peckerhead is streaming on Tubi. Go add it to your list. Watch it together with Bloody Axe Wound. I just think you would have a great evening between the two. Well, that will do it for another chapter. Just make sure you subscribe. I have one more Holiday of Horrors coming up. My friend Drew and I, we're going to talk a Christmas horror story. Unfortunately, Gerald and I haven't been able to figure out our timing to get Black Christmas. I know we had a couple more left. But maybe, beginning of the year, we'll do a little one-off Black Christmas. We'll see. But just make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much for everyone who listens. I hope you have a happy holidays, a wonderful new year. I can't wait for some of the things I have in the works for 2025. I really, really appreciate everybody who listens to the show, who shares the show, who interacts with me. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it. I'm having a blast doing this podcast, and I can't wait to bring you even more throughout the next year. I'll be back soon. Just snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.